Welcome to Chefs in the City. I'm Ann Fisher, along with my co-hosts, Steve Stover and Rich Terapak. If you want to know more about us, where we come from, why we're doing this, I refer you back to our first episode where we explain the mysteries of Chefs in the City. One of the best things about the food scene in Columbus in central Ohio is that it offers a variety of portals. One of those portals, one that has become something of an institution in central Ohio, is Columbus Food Adventures, founded in 2010 by Bethia Woolf and Andy Diaz. It started with 3 tours and now offers 11 unique experiences, foodie scavenger hunts, and custom tours. Bethia Woolf joins us today. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
You write on your website that your passion began with websites like Taco Truck Columbus, TacoTrucksColumbus.com, Alt.Eats, Columbus.com, and HungryWolf.com.
Yeah.
These are websites you started.
Yeah, so it really started when I'd moved to Columbus and I was having all of these really great food experiences. I was going to the farmers markets and finding amazing products, and Jenny's ice cream, was still sort of a new and novelty. And I was volunteering at the North Market. Robin Davis was organizing all these chefs doing cooking classes, and I was having just these really fantastic food experiences, and I was just initially looking for a way to share them with family and friends. And so I started my first blog, which was Hungry Wolf, and that was just kind of almost a food journal of like, here's what I'm cooking, here's what I'm eating. And then I actually was taking a geography class at Ohio State and had to do a research project, and that led to the birth of Taco Trucks Columbus.
So you started mapping them out and that kind of a thing?
Yeah, mapping them, documenting them. In those days, it was before Yelp. It was before, Google Maps was, I don't know when Google Maps started, but it was, it's hard to find these places. And we knew there were some taco trucks, and we started going out exploring them and just were overwhelmed by how many we found, and kind of excited to share that with people.
And they moved often. That's the other problem, right?
So, the taco trucks move less frequently, but they don't really have advertising or social media.
Right.
Then it was kind of shortly after that was when we got the new wave of food trucks, and those ones really do move around.
Right.
And do use social media and that kind of thing. Yeah.
There's the food truck world. There's
rerouting. You save 2 minutes.
He's following a food truck.
Sorry about
That's
that.
a new one.
Sorry. Let's see if I can turn this thing off.
Okay, so.
There's a lot of different variety in kind of the models of food trucks.
How many trucks do we have on average during the spring season, for instance?
So we did fairly recently a survey of taco trucks, just focusing on the taco trucks, and we found over 100.
Wow.
We didn't look at all of the other food trucks, but just kind of judging by how many participate in events like the Food Truck Festival and some of those other big events, I've got to imagine there's a similar number of other non-taco trucks.
That's great.
So
200 trucks.
Well, there's a
lot
food
of
truck
variety.
festival here now. There was a food truck cookbook one year.
Yeah, there's there's really, that is something that's really exploded in the last 15 years.
Yeah.
When did you go from sort of the 2-dimensional thing to the 3-dimensional tours?
So
or why or how?
So as you say, we launched in 2010, and it was a combination of things. We started when we were doing Taco Trucks Columbus. We had people that wanted to come with us and kind of do things with us. So we started, I think, back in 2009, doing what we called Taco Truck tours. They weren't really tours. They were kind of gatherings where it would be like we would pick a few trucks for people to go to. But that gave us a sense that there was a real interest in having somebody not just kind of going by yourself to the trucks. And then the same year, 2009, one of my good friends did a food tour in New York, and I had never heard of them before. And he's like, "Oh, you should do this. You'd be great at doing this." And I was like, "I don't want to move to New York," So it just, but we started doing some research, and we saw there were food tours in Chicago. We went to Chicago and did a couple of food tours, and we're like, we have better food. Not overall, I would say Chicago, has a really amazing food scene. But in terms of the places they took us on the tour, tour, we felt that we could do just as good a tour, if not better, in the Short North was our first walking tour that we did. So, and, you know, I was lucky I met a lot of chefs through the cooking classes I was volunteering at the North Market. So I knew Kent Rigsby and met Jenny, and I was able to go and talk to these people and say, you know, we'd like to put together a food tour here. Experience Columbus was really enthusiastic about the idea because they were just really kind of getting into the experiential side of kind of activities.
What was your first official tour?
You know, we started with 3 itineraries. We started with Old Eats tour, which was based on our Old Eats blog. We had the taco truck tour, and we had our Short North tour.
Okay.
And
I did 2 of those anyway.
I honestly don't remember which was the first one.
Close enough.
The Old Eats was the one I first went on. It was
well
done.
That one, I mean, that one continues. We still run all of those tours today. We've added a lot more over the years, but we still run all 3 of those. And the Old Eats one, I think, really is kind of reflective of where our passion lies, in that we just love introducing people to some of the cuisines they might not have experienced otherwise, or they might be reticent to try by themselves, or they're just not sure what to order, or they're not even aware that we have them in Central Ohio. So,
What are some of your newer ones?
So our newest tour, actually, we're launching a new one in April, and that is a food hall tour.
Oh, that's
good.
But
Good.
since the pandemic, we have a Dublin tour now with the opening of the pedestrian bridge in Dublin. That really makes for a great tour because you can start off in the historic side of Dublin and see all the old architecture and visit some of the kind of institutions there. And then you kind of cross over the river into the future and you do Bridge Park.
Yeah, I call it Emerald City.
So Dublin's a newer one. The Food Hall Tours is the newest one. But we have expanded over the years and added German Village, Grandview, Worthington, all these great historic walkable areas.
How many a week do you do?
It really varies, depending on the time of year. So, you know, over the winter it's more like 3 or 4, and you know, in the summer it's probably a dozen.
Yeah.
So.
And Experience Columbus has got to love you. You're exposing those visitors, the conventioners.
Is it typically out of towners?
No, you know, actually that's one of the reasons that we've added all of the new tours over the years, is because we get so many locals, and sort of wider Central Ohio, but I think a lot of people, look at it as a way to explore a neighborhood they don't usually go to, or they're just looking to try some new restaurants. And we, I think Columbus, is a very different market to a lot of the other cities that have food tours. You know, if you go to Key West or even New York City, I think you're getting more of the tourist market. But in Columbus, we get so many locals, and that's why we had to add the new tours, because people they're like, oh, I've been on the Short North tour, I want to do something different.
And I also think of newcomers. There's so many newcomers, people moving to Columbus now that want to figure it out.
Yeah. Yeah, there's that. And then just, I think we have people that they come on the tour, they have a really good experience, and then they're like, we want to do this again. And so they just want to try a new area.
What hits for you? What makes the list for you? How do you know when it's time to add that?
A new tour?
Yeah, a new tour or a new venue?
A new tour, I think it's when we just feel like we have a really good idea for a new tour, a really kind of good quorum. Like with Dublin, we'd had the idea for a while, but it was really waiting on the bridge. With the food hall tours, I think it's just now with Little Grand opening, and now you've got Little Grand, East Market, Bud Dairy, all kind of in a smaller area, but with a lot of variety, a lot of really great vendors to highlight.
There were up to 8, I think, total food halls.
So
with the new one in German Village coming this year.
And there's a new one downtown coming in the old bank building, I believe, right by by Lazarus.
Yeah,
Lazarus.
Yeah, the original.
By the old
National
Lazarus
Bank.
building.
Yeah, it's a beautiful building.
So it's So yeah, but I mean, in terms of adding, restaurants or who we work with, we're always looking for, obviously, delicious food is a prerequisite, but then we're looking for places that have a good story. Either they're the best at what they're doing in the city, or they're doing something unique, or it's just somewhere that we're excited about and we want to share it with other people.
What's your template for a tour? What should someone expect on a tour? What happens?
So they vary because we have some that are van tours and some that are walking tours, and so that makes a difference. With the walking tours, they're generally exploring a historic neighborhood, and so you're going typically anywhere between 5 to 7 different places. You're having something to eat at each one. All of the food is prearranged, but in general, you're going to have enough that would be a generous meal's worth of food.
At the end of the tour.
But in total,
By the time
so
it's
it's
up,
so I guess if you're going to 5 places, each one is going to be like a fifth worth of
Right, of course,
the meal.
maybe,
So,
yeah, okay.
with the van tours, they're a little different because they tend to have a little bit less of the history, and they're more focused on the different cuisines or kind of understanding a new cuisine. So.
And now we have 70 cuisines, is that correct?
Yeah, we do.
Wow, that's amazing, isn't it?
I mean, we used to say, there's 40 different cuisines in Columbus,
Yeah.
and we, said that for, many
Columbus
years.
Monthly had 48 in their last issue.
But we recently we wrote something for Food Letter looking at that, and we kind of really went through, and when you include the various food trucks and markets, and you dig in a little deeper with some of the ones that just call themselves Mediterraneans, and some of the people doing kind of catering and new startups, we got to over 70 different cuisines.
Wow, that's
represented.
terrific. The newsletter. Tell us more about your newsletter. It's a great source of information for this.
Thank you. We started it. We launched it in September 2024. We hired last year Erin Edwards, who was the former editor, dining editor for Columbus Monthly. And when she joined the team, we had decided, discussed starting a newsletter. I think we, in the course of all of our food tours and going out doing research, and we come across a lot of great stories and interesting people, and had been looking for a way to share some of that with people. And Erin joining the team kind of gave us the journalist kind of props. We had an editor, someone with some real journalism experience.
Having been with Columbus Monthly for dining editor, I guess, for a number of years.
Yeah. So it's the three of us. And we publish the newsletter twice a week. We cover all kinds of different things from, recently we covered the history of Chinese restaurants. We try and cover some of the cuisines that people might be less aware of in Columbus. Ukrainian, Uyghur, Algerian.
That's amazing.
And, we talk about food trends. We do interviews with interesting people in the food scene, previews of restaurants, kind of whatever kind of comes across our kind of radar that we think is interesting.
Great product. It really is. Very informative. Yeah.
And you're also starting a corporate program.
So we've been doing corporate tours for quite a long time, but with Erin coming on board, we're really expanding that program. We've always been, I think, just a little more, reactive. When people have inquired, asked us to do tours for corporate groups, we've put together experiences for them. But now, kind of having bolstered our team, now we're trying to be more proactive.
Three whole people.
So we kind of redid our website. We've been kind of putting our product offering together in a little more kind of, systematic, streamlined kind of a way. But we've put together some really great experiences. We did, last year there was a big tourism convention in Columbus, and TripAdvisor was here and wanted to put together a VIP experience for some of their clients. And so we did a really kind of fun. We had a lot of kind of freedom to put together a really great experience for them, and but we've worked with quite a lot of corporations locally, and we're looking to do more. We do, I think you mentioned in the beginning, we do scavenger hunts, we do team building things, we do kind of progressive dinners for people that are great for when they're entertaining clients. But we're finding now that, with so many people working remotely, seems to be a lot of companies, people work in different cities and then they bring them together for meetings. And so they're kind of in meetings all day and then they're staying in a hotel overnight.
Right.
And so they're looking for something fun, different to do in the evening.
Instead of just sitting at a table.
Yeah. And
all
so
night.
the progressive dinners are great because it gives people a chance to it shows off the city a little more. They get to move around a little bit more. It kind of inherently kind of not forces, but it kind of makes you mingle in a way that you wouldn't if you were sitting at the same table all night.
Right.
And it gives people a chance to go to different styles, different types of
And see the
restaurants.
town.
Yeah.
I wondered, I've been asking all of our guests this, how you navigated the pandemic. We just noted that the 5-year mark since the onset, how did that impact your business?
Well, I mean, it basically shut us down.
No more bus
overnight.
tours.
Yeah, I mean, we went from having a thriving business. We'd had a great January and February in 2020, and then overnight we were just done. So we had maybe a week of like, what do we get? Just issuing cancellations and refunds and trying to figure out what we were going to do. And then Andy had the idea of doing what we called Trustful, which was a meal delivery service, but with a twist that people didn't know what they were going to get.
Oh, well, yes, that's right. Yes.
Yep.
So we worked.
I think we talked about that.
With all of our small immigrant restaurant partners, trying to figure out, trying to help them because they weren't kind of geared up with social media and all the delivery services. So we would order a meal. We'd sell tickets for it, so it would be like 20 people could buy this meal for 2, and then we would deliver it. And luckily, it worked because there was no traffic, and so it helped the restaurants, and people loved it because there was so much kind of monotony and being stuck at home, and so having this kind of surprise and not knowing what you were going to get and eating food from all over the world.
Foods,
Yeah.
unique restaurants.
So we had a lot of really kind of loyal followers doing that, and it kept us busy. It helped out the restaurants, kept us going, and then now, at the end of the pandemic, we still have people, are you going to bring Trustful back? Can you still keep doing it? But I don't think it would work now with the traffic and, people's lives are busier, people are out more. But we've now kind of transitioned that similar idea, but in person together. And so now we do dinners. And so we do these monthly taste of dinners where we feature a different international cuisine. So this month we're doing a Bolivian dinner with a local restaurant who the owner is Bolivian. And so we've done, taste of Kurdistan, Turkey, northern China, all all different countries and regions, Laos, just trying to highlight some of these great cuisines.
How do you get the information out? Mostly social media, or?
Yeah, so the dinners actually is to our mailing list.
Okay.
So we have having been in business, almost 15 years, we have a pretty healthy mailing list, and often they sell out just once we send them to our mailing list.
Yeah.
If it's a bigger dinner, we have more capacity, then often we'll add it on, we'll post it on social media as well.
How do you price it?
So the dinners are typically $72 a person, and people can just go online and buy tickets. And
I also wondered if you can generalize after all these years now about what kind of person tends to go on these tours.
So
outside of the corporate world, where things are set up for other people.
We actually have for the tours, we have a really broad audience.
Yeah.
We have
Food adventurers.
we do.
People who like to eat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We do a lot with Ohio State. They are keen, I think, to get students off campus and experiencing different things in the city. So Ohio State, the union activity program buys a lot of tickets, which they then discount for students. So we have a lot of college age, and then, we have kind of every generation. We have a lot of families where either the kind of adult children will gift food tours to the parents, or the parents will gift them to their children, and then they'll all come together.
So you can get like gift cards, that kind of a thing?
Yeah, and
Okay.
I think it's been pretty popular for that because, so many people are like, oh, I don't need things anymore. I just want experiences. And so we get a lot of people where it's almost become like a birthday tradition or a, Christmas tradition that every year they get a food tour for Christmas or, so yeah, we get a really broad range. Like Steve said, food adventures. I think it's people that love to eat, people that are interested in exploring, trying new places,
and aren't afraid of meeting new people and being in that kind of a situation too.
Yeah, we do. I think get a little different. The people, it was interesting that there's some people that do tours and did the trustfuls and did the dinners, but then there's some people that do trustfuls and dinners, but they're not really tour people. And so it's kind of been nice to have these sort of different product offerings because I think they do appeal a little bit to different people.
Yeah.
What's your staffing? Just you and
our kind of core team is 4 people. So we have Andy, myself, Erin, and then we have an operations manager. Who came to us actually from the theater world and driving. We met him because he did a lot of Uber driving as well, and somebody was a friend of a friend recommended him, and so he started driving for us in the pandemic. But when we saw how capable and organized he was, he's now our operations manager.
Excellent.
And then we have a team of over 20 tour guides who work for us part-time. I'd say typically they do 2 tours a month, and they're just people that they all have other jobs, and they range. We have lawyers, teachers, a pastor, people that work in marketing and communications, really broad range. Yeah. But they're just people that love food, love Columbus, love to share that passion, like to meet new people, and they just do it a couple of weekends a month as a side
That's terrific.
kind of thing. So
we have been talking with Bethia Woolf. She and Andy Diaz started Columbus Food Adventures in 2010, and we've been talking about the tours and 11 unique tours and experiences now, and also foodie scavenger hunts, custom tours, corporate tours, you name it. I mean, it's astounding. I mean, there's an answer for if you have a question. She's got the answer. Yeah, I know, spinning. So if you want to check that out, you go to the website, I assume.
Yeah, so columbusfoodadventures.com is the website for tours and dinners and things, and then just to kind of keep up on the Columbus food scene. In addition to the Chefs in the City podcast, another way is Columbus Food Letter, which it's on Substack. So the website is columbusfoodletter.substack.com.
Okay.
So.
Well, thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Thanks. Well, that's it. Thanks for joining us for another episode of Chefs in the City. You can find us wherever you get your podcasts, and you can find us on Facebook at Ann Fisher's Chefs in the City. And our email is chefsinthecity111@gmail.com. You can check us out there if you have any questions or comments. Thanks so much for listening. Talk to you later.
Boxland Media. Think big.